I'm having a lot of sound problems. You know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to kick in. It's going to be the quietest fucking thing ever.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, made me jump then.
Sorry.
Wasn't ready for that.
That's okay.
I've been busy today. I'm tired.
Yeah, I'm a bit tired too. It's been a hard day. It's been a
I've
hard
been
day.
out. It's been a hard day getting my hair done.
So this is not live. We are pre-recording this week because Frida's working. I've got some stuff I'm doing. So we decided to do it midweek and then put it out on Sunday.
Yeah, I just working Sunday, saving some money.
Yes.
Tits don't pay.
That voice training. Interestingly, I don't know if this is Frida on the left here. The other person, I don't know who they are. I might follow up at some point. Interestingly, Frida seems to be either off the podcast or they've done a few separately recently. Because if you look here, there she is. And then suddenly 8 months ago, and then 7 months ago, and then it kind of stops. But then also these videos are quite inconsistent. So you'll have 35, 36. We've got, actually these are pretty, there's no 41, for example. The first one is number 2. We've got 3, 9, 12, 14, etc. So I don't really know the story. We'll probably find out at some point. But yeah, anyway, Gender Nebulous with Frida Wallace and Vicky.
From themselves, so. Yeah, I went to Bolton today with my mum, and I've not been to Bolton Town. He was like, prawns as big as my arm, but I know I didn't buy anything.
Baffling.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk, I was on GB News talking about...
All right, here we go. So she's talking about her appearances. I guess we'll get a bit of insight into what she thinks of her appearances. Me personally, I thought they were awful. I thought her representation of trans people was completely embarrassing, useless, not what we need in the slightest. But let's see what she thinks.
Sports and stuff like that. So inevitably, when this hit the Twitter feed, there was the inevitable backlash. Most of it was just the usual rubbish about, men can't be women. Anyway, Sarah Fillmore was saying, what was it? The emergence of Frida Wallace as a talking head on various news channels.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange... I'll read it out to you. I've got it here. So it was... Hang on, let me just get it.
By the way, I don't find any of these kind of things compelling. I can't watch like queer podcasts and like trans podcasts and stuff. It's just not for me. There's a bias there. I'll happily admit that.
Screen here. So the emergence of Frida Wallace as a talking head on various news channels is interesting.
So all our usual suspects, they all have one thing in common, and the main thing in common is transphobia. Now they might hide that behind free speech, and
So what are we saying? Her critics are the backlash. It's transphobia. Her critics are transphobia. I don't think I'm a transphobe, and I thought your performances were absolute dog shit. So hey.
They might say it's to do with sports, and they might say it's to do with women's rights or whatever it is that they're peddling that week.
Yeah, so what they say isn't important. They've decided they're transphobic, basically. Is that what it is?
But the common denominator is always to do with trans people.
Well, when they're talking about trans issues, yeah. Like, these are hot button topics right now. But just because they're talking about trans people more, because there's more trans people and our issues are getting more and more visible and affecting more and more people as they have over time, which none of these people seem to ever acknowledge for some reason. We can't listen to what they're saying. Oh, they're saying that, whatever it is, but it's actually just they want to go on about trans people. They want to have a go at trans people. Like, maybe they actually see a specific issue, and to refuse to acknowledge their arguments and engage with them, how are you ever supposed to start arguing against them when you just write it off as transphobia? In my opinion, transphobia should be one of the last conclusions that we reach, because if everything you see you just say, oh, that's transphobia, or that's transphobia, you're cheapening the word. You're making people think, hey, maybe being a transphobe is just normal, maybe that's just not such a bad thing. Fuck. Like, calling everything bigotry is just not a good argument, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, you've called someone a bigot, okay, well, what then? They probably disagree with you. They probably don't think they're transphobic. They just don't think that someone who is born male should be running in a race with born females.
That's where their bread and butter is. So if I'm going to put myself in the way of that conversation, and that's why I do it. It's not...
Yeah, so it's not about actually arguing. It's just about getting in the way, and about making those conversations harder to have, which is completely pointless because you're kind of bringing more scrutiny onto it by not arguing and being difficult and going off into other things. It's nice to see someone admitting this at least, because this is how it works on social media and stuff as well, even if you're like friends with someone.
Because
there's not many trans voices you ever see on these kind of shows. Not
Yeah, so why would we want the trans voices that do appear to be such dog shit? Why would we want them to be these aggressive freaks making no sense, throwing out bizarro arguments that are not even designed to engage? Why would we want that? Why would we want those people to be the few people that people are seeing? Because when other people see that, when other people see you doing your best to divert a conversation, that's not going to look good on them, and it's not going to give them a good impression of trans people, because ultimately at that point you're a representative. And if you can't take that seriously, why are you there, with all due respect?
That I watch them, but you don't really see a lot of trans people going on there because
why would
because
you?
they're going to get harassed severely. You've been on, a few others have been on, but
They'll get harassed severely. But at what point are you not bringing some of that on yourself? And by the way, how much are we going to talk about the kind of harassment that people who are anti-trans get? Because it goes both ways. Like, you think trans groups, you think trans audiences of creators, you think they don't harass people, you think they don't go after people they don't like, even other trans people. For example, Demon Mama's community going after Riley Grace Rochon because she said some things that they didn't like. And they went after her, trying to get her disbarred from her, she was studying to become a lawyer. Like, is that kind of thing okay? But we won't even acknowledge it. It's even people like Keffels, like, she literally was a fucking online harasser. She'd get her community to do all sorts of shit. But it only ever matters when the harassment is going the other way, and then suddenly she's the biggest victim in the world. It's ridiculous.
It's like we said before, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the only reason I know about these news channels and the only reason I know about these people is because I'm trans, and a lot of hate, a lot of the aggression I see on Twitter
Proper looks like those glasses are upside down, by the way.
Directed at me is coming from those channels. Like, if you look at the comments section of any GB News or any Talk TV or it's on all sorts of channels as well, like, Jeremy Vine and things like that. The commentary is very narrow and it's very dumbed down. So if you put yourself into that burr pit, then
Their comments are turned off, so I can't tell whether theirs are the same, but you could say the same about any channel. I looked at that Alec Gunter video, like, plenty of his fans are like glazing his ass for what was one of the worst videos, one of the worst takes on a trans issue I've ever seen in my life. That's just how it is. And if you're going to go into the lion's den, you're either going to have to be extremely tough and okay with rolling in the mud, or you're going to have to go on there and try and actually engage and try and actually forward the conversation, even if by millimeters. Like, I know which one I'd rather do personally, but to me that suggests that these people are not in it for the right reasons. I mean, this person has basically admitted that the reason they're into it is to disrupt conversations, which is useless. There's no point. What, you're on there for like 10 minutes and then what? They'll get someone else on and then just talk about it amongst themselves. And you're presented as some kind of, like the other guy, Felix Fern, I think I have a couple of videos of him left. He's presented as like the founder of Trans Activism UK. Would you not expect, when seeing founder of Trans Activism UK, a bit more professionalism? Like someone actually with a horse to run in this race, instead of just someone mouthing off because they saw some mean shit they didn't like on Twitter and they think that they've got some moral impetus to act like a dickhead on this platform now?
I can't complain about being criticised because I'm electing to be in that arena, right? But that doesn't make it right. That doesn't mean I shouldn't speak. But
No one's saying you shouldn't speak. The problem is the stuff that you're saying.
I think that I make my case isn't that I'm a trans person. My case is that what you're saying is bullshit. And I'll tell
your case is that you're wrong. Okay, great argument. Does this person watch Vorsh? I wonder if they watch Vorsh.
Tell you why it is if you want to listen, right? It's got nothing to do with.
Okay, what she does is broadens it out to this transphobic conspiracy instead of actually engaging with the talking points themselves, just highlighting the fact that they're talking points and come from a certain direction. That's all that I've really seen her do so far. There's other videos. This is going to come out after at least a couple of videos that I've done covering her. So I guess people can think for themselves. I do not think this person is a good activist, and that they clearly aren't very self-aware of that. Like, the way the conversations have gone, if it was me, I don't know how good I'd feel about the way some of these went, but hey, I mean, we've seen her being transphobic, we've seen her bad-mouthing all kinds of people that weren't involved in conversations. Exo Stranger, my day is going good. How is your day going?
I'm not there as the trans person defending trans people or being trans. That's not the issue. The issue is that you're lying about something. You're pursuing a morally duplicitous argument.
You won't give an example of this. Like, it's funny, she never seems to be really highlighting many lies when she actually appears on these things. But when you go back to a podcast and sum it up, like, you can say whatever the fuck you want and people are going to eat it up, ultimately. I need to find out what kind of platform these people have. I hope it's not, like, bigger than this, because so far this is fucking dire.
In all...
Avoiding editing right now. Yeah, I do that. I did one this morning. I need to get better at it, because, like, the videos are still kind of slow. I guess I'm relying on people just clicking the 1.5 times speed or whatever, but yeah, I feel you. I feel you on that one. It's not the most fun thing to do. Maybe in a year or two, if I have any kind of platform, I'll be able to afford someone to do it for me. Who knows?
In order to win over certain members of the public who are weak-minded. Not that they're weak-minded, it's just that the way that they posit the argument is always a fear narrative. Trans people are a problem. That is
a fear narrative. Trans people are a problem. That doesn't... They're saying that there's a certain problem being thrown up, say, with sports. That's not necessarily a fear narrative. There's so much spin going on here. Like, Jesus. Calls other people weak-minded. I think this person's just as brainwashed as half the people that they're talking about. Because a lot of the anti-trans people are kind of a bit brainwashed and have never really spoken to an actual trans person. But I guarantee you, I would fucking pay money to bet that this person... Like, fuck, what was I trying to say? I've forgotten now. Yeah, I'd bet that this person is exactly the same as those people, and that she is not... I had it on the tip of my tongue like twice now. It's not your fault, don't worry. Yeah. No one who is that brainwashed into being anti-trans is going to watch this person doing the exact same shit from the other side and be convinced by her. That's kind of what I'm saying. Like, because that's just two opposite things going head to head and banging against each other. And that's useless. You have to, like, try and establish some common ground. And this person has no interest in doing that. So it's like, what's the point? What are you here for, other than for your ego? Dead by Daylight music videos. That's not a genre I'm too familiar with. A lot more difficult than you thought. What is it? Is it a different kind of video then, or is it a particularly intricate one? I'll just keep going, and I'll pick up on chat here and there.
It's always the narrative. So if I can go in there and just
yeah, see, it's always the narrative. The narrative I'm hearing right now is your narrative.
Be a trans person, but not necessarily talk from a defensive point of view, but simply talk from a critical point of view. Like criticize the message. Not, I mean, there's a difference between, like,
yeah, but you do it so badly.
It comes down to this idea of the medium and then the message, and they're two distinct things. So right, you've got the message is there's this kind of invasion narrative, or there's some sort of negativity, like you see in the sports debate or the single-sex spaces debate. It's like they believe that our rights are infringing on somebody else's rights, which isn't really the case. How
is it not the case, for example, if male athletes start transitioning and, like, actually dominating women's sports, isn't there a loss of rights on the women's end? Like, how does she justify this? Let's see.
We getting more rights isn't taking rights away from somebody else. It's not.
Is that true? How do you make that? This just sounds like Twitter sound bites.
Not like a cake. Where if we have a bit of that cake, you've got less.
No.
Yeah.
Why not? Why they won't? This is just a Twitter soundbite. I hear this all the time. More rights for trans people doesn't mean less rights for women. Well, doesn't that depend on the right? Doesn't that depend on what's happening? Alter egos making the killers. Okay, so I guess it needs quite a lot of visual like storytelling, if I'm right. That sounds like it. That sounds cool though. What song's it to?
Pie. Okay, I prefer the cake
I
thing.
prefer pies, but anyway,
No,
same thing.
cakes are sweet. But well, you know what I'm saying.
No, it's just, but you know what I'm saying. Well, no, I don't know what you're saying because you won't explain any of it. You're just saying sound bites.
Anyway, so and then they've got the medium, which is like the medium.
Like, I'll grant she seems like a much nicer person around people she agrees with, but that makes me suspicious of people personally. If someone is different around people that they disagree with, rather than just talking and trying to come to some common ground or just laying out a different perspective, like, you shouldn't be like less of a good person to them, in my opinion. And she's still like lying a bunch as far as I can see.
Is the way it's framed.
Made by Misery by Citizen Soldier. I don't know that one. I listen to a lot of music, but it's mostly like indie rock and like emo and stuff.
GB News especially it's like the audiobook of the Daily Mail, isn't it? So it's
Again, what does that mean? It's like sound bites.
It's always the snappy headline. It's always the kind of, what do you call it? The money shot.
It's the easy money story.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
because
For these people, talking about GB News or the Daily Mail or anything right-leaning is easy money. If I wanted to, I could sit here and talk about fucking Matt Walsh every day, and I'd probably get a fair amount of people swooping to me just to shit on Matt Walsh. Like, left-wing videos about Matt Walsh, it's like taking candy from a baby. It's the easiest shit in the world. Like, anyone can do that shit. Criticizing your own side, I think, is much harder and more necessary.
because you've got it. Because if you honestly, anything on social media now is like that because it's clickbait.
Yeah.
So you've got
Yeah, which includes these people, and like, it's hypocritical. Like, one thing I wonder is, why do these people think that doing the same kind of thing from the other side as to what they're criticizing is good? Why does it have to be something like, well, those people do that, therefore it's okay for me to now do it? Do you know what I mean? Like, how does that help?
got the clickbait element, and then you've also got the fear element, and you've got the shock element. Or because I'm sure they want me.
Yeah, this is just deconstructing something they don't really understand from the other side of the idiot coin. Like, you flip the coin, it'll land on you or it'll land on them, but you're getting more or less the same shit either way.
To go on there and be the trans activist, and I can play that. I can play that game, and I can be aggressive. I can shout,
Yeah, she certainly can. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but it's not about being aggressive and shouting. It's about coming across with the point,
which she doesn't do,
of why they're wrong in what they say.
Why are you saying exactly what she doesn't do? You must have seen these, and you've probably been blowing smoke up her ass about how well she did. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, but if I am aggressive, it's because I care about what I'm saying. It's not because I'm trying to upset somebody.
Yeah,
it doesn't come across like she cares about what she's saying. No offense. It comes across like grandstanding and showboating, and like this is a ego thing.
I mean, it's difficult to not get upset. So, and that's where the anger.
It isn't actually that difficult to not get upset. Just desensitize yourself to that shit a bit. Learn to see through all the bullshit and just get to the actual arguments and take them on. But that's difficult to do because it requires thought. It requires brain power. It requires thinking about the shit that people say that upsets you. And it's easier just to be defensive, and it's easier just to fight back. But it's not really effective to most of the time. Not in this way. Not in the way that this person does anyway.
It comes from, and you got to kind of hold that in check while you're doing those things, and just make the points based on the facts and the law. I think that's the way to do it.
Again, I don't think that summarizes anything that this person's done in what I've seen, certainly, or really any of the TRAs that I've watched. I've watched several of them, and they're all like dire so far. It's pretty embarrassing.
Well, this is why it always comes down to me for like a lot of these people who the basic thing they believe is that trans isn't really a thing, and
they don't believe that you can transition, I guess. Are we going to start doing the you don't believe in my existence thing? Because that's not the same thing.
You can't change sex.
which, to be fair, you can't entirely. Like, I have taken on certain physical aspects and certain social aspects of being a woman. I'm not actually a woman. I haven't physically turned into a woman.
And men can't be women, and those really basic.
Yeah, they just cycle the same things all the time.
Baby talk, but I'm not interested. I'm like, yeah,
whatever.
Wait, how many times have people said that to her on? I feel like I'm being gaslit again. Like, ultimately this all goes on YouTube, and there'll be examples that I can show. So if I see someone being dishonest, I can highlight it easily. And I want to make kind of more scripted things highlighting specific people, because so many of these people need to fucking stop just immediately. They probably, I mean, I don't know when the last time this person admittedly appeared on one of these, and this next person that I'm looking at, Felix Fern, again, thank fuck for that. He's a bit more fun. Most of these people are the same. Like, I don't know how long it's been since many of them appeared on these things, but they shouldn't have been getting involved in it in the first place. Like, there's an arrogance about trans people that think, because I'm trans, I know what my rights are, and I know about trans rights issues, even when it's about specific things.
My starting point is fine. I don't care if you believe that or not. What I care about is you weaponizing an argument to convince other people to feel the same way. Right? Whereas...
So engage with that argument and defeat it. Weaponize your own arguments instead of making these meta conversations. This is fucking boring. I'm going to have a quick look at this, and then we're going to move on, because this doesn't need to be a super long thing.
So, we know a little bit about you, Kirsty. You know, we know you're an accomplished athlete and you've got quite a lot of history. So would you like to tell us, for the people watching, a bit more about yourself and a bit of your history?
Yeah. Well, I describe myself as a transgender woman, and I'm a surgically transition woman, something that I did about 17 years ago, and I'm about 23 years into my journey as Kirsty. Up until that stage, my first day as a woman was actually walking into my jail that I was the governor of as a woman. Wow. I went home one day as Warren and went back the next day as Kirsty, and that was 23 years ago. Prior to that, I was to the outside world, a married man, a father of three, a former world champion and dual international athlete. But
right, we're going to skip to trans people in sports, because that's something I know a bit more about. Debunking the nonsense. It's like reaction content.
You never see fair play for women.
Is that going to be there for like fucking ages? Yeah, it is. And when this Frida woman appears, like, there was one time she was Frida, who was with Manchester LGBT or something, which I don't know how she got anyone to take her seriously enough to involve her in that shit. But actually, no, I do. Trans people are very easily manipulated. But usually she's just listed as being from this podcast, and I've no idea. I can actually check. I've got Spotify right here. All right, well, I learned nothing there. I don't think they have a particularly big platform. Most of these don't, because most of these podcasts are not very interesting. So I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Advocating for greater representation of females in the sports media, or greater representation on senior boards, and more funding and more research for women, and talking about the negative attitudes against women athletes. Like people like Fair Play for Women and Sharon Davies, all they've done for the last 7-8 years is tell women all over the world that not only that you'll never beat a boy or a man, you'll never beat a transgender woman that's had no testosterone for up to 20 years in her body. Like,
they just get to say this. Has she honestly said that? Or is it just that the advantage from being born male makes it unfair? Because those are two different things.
They're absolutely putting crap on cisgender women more so than what they are trans women athletes.
Yeah,
I've never seen negatively about both groups of us,
Yeah,
so
Are they? I didn't know about that. Lil Zoe 22, how you doing?
Seen Sharon Davis say anything positive really about grassroots girls sports. So if you cared about women's sports, perhaps that's where you should be putting your energies.
If you care about this, you should be talking about that instead. That's just not an argument. Like,
because it's so like women's sport is very underfunded, and that's another factor.
Yeah, it probably is, but like, what's that got to do with the specific question about trans athletes?
And I honestly believe that the biggest reason we still have this around 10% gender gap in performance, and more so in some strength sports, is not due to testosterone and not due to biology. It's due to the negative attitudes again.
So women don't perform as well as men in most sports because of negative attitudes.
Like every woman,
And she's nodding. Like, really? Oh my God.
every child, every girl that's born, we tell them they can't beat boys. You know,
Is that what's happening? That's a very weird, like, wording of this. This is winding me up more than I thought it was going to. This person, so they were an under 16 swimmer in Australia. So that's long before they transitioned.
and yeah, the imbalance in funding, but it's a negative.
How does an imbalance of funding, like, so is this person suggesting that actually men and women perform at very similar levels, but because of attitudes and because of the lack of funding, that's why women don't perform as well as men? I think women possibly don't perform as well as men because they're physically smaller and physically less strong in general. Like, Jesus Christ. Battling misinformation. Where does it say that? I'm irritated now. I have to find out. Where is it? It was on Spotify. Yeah, dispel the many myths around transgender and non-binary people's gender identities. Well, they're nothing but myths because we don't know what the fuck they are. To empower individuals going through transition, campaign against misinformation in the media on transgender and non-binary issues. You're platforming misinformation. What the fuck are you doing?
Attitudes.
You're nodding along as someone provides misinformation, saying that it's most likely to do with, what is it? Funding or attitudes. Like, really? Really?
Absolutely negative, and the negative attitudes at Fair Play for Women, Sharon Davies, this right.
And they turn it back on Fair Play for Women, Sharon Davies, so easily. Like, Jesus Christ, this is grim. This is grim. This is, Jesus. What am I even supposed to say to this, man?
Charlie Gaines, all these, you know, and they're all blonde women. They're all blonde women coming out.
They're all blonde. What? No. We're just gonna keep going. I'm not gonna explode.
Saying this, like, you don't get many, you know, African American anti-trans athletes. You know, like they're all blonde women, mainly blonde women from two countries, America and the USA. Blonde women coming out saying this, like, you don't get many, you know, African American anti-trans athletes. You know, like they're all blonde women, mainly blonde women from two countries, America and the USA.
America and the USA. Oh, Jesus. I guess the implication is, because if we're trans, we have to hate white people, I guess. I guess the implication is it's all white people from Western countries, but that's what most of the trans people are, is white people from Western countries. Who's this? A white person from a Western country. Who's this? A white person from a Western country. Who's this? A white person from a Western country.
Which have got two of the biggest histories of women's doping in sport. You know, like...
I think she probably meant to say the United Kingdom and the USA, but she said America and the United States. Jesus.
Sometimes people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. You know, like Sharon Davies competed in the drug era. Like, who's clean from there? We don't know.
Yeah, that's be hard to prove. But I mean, I do look at Sharon Davies, well, she's quite a large woman. She's quite broad-shouldered. She's got, you know, she's tall. If you're a tall...
But she wasn't born a man, and that counts.
Swimmer, that gives you an advantage. That was the point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. And
but the problem is, some of them specifically were born male, which predisposes you to that, and which provides potential other advantages. Like, oh my God, this is just how many ways can we not deal with the elephant in the room around trans sports, which is that it's very much looks like men getting into the women's division by any means they can. Like, how are we supposed to deal with the issue when we won't confront the obvious, which is that 1, 2, 3, 4 people here, we're all born male, but only one of us apparently is aware of what that does to make us different and what advantages that gives us in certain things. Like, I'm stronger than most women I've ever met. The ones that I'm not stronger than are usually the kind that actually work out like a lot, because I work out a bit, but not a huge amount. But like I've met women my size that are like nowhere near as strong as me, that can't lift anywhere near the kind of stuff that I can.
Yeah, and like she would massively, if they put Sharon Davies and myself in a lab, we're both about the same age, okay? If they put us in a lab and did our hemoglobin checks, did EPO checks, did bone mineral density checks, muscle mass checks, height, weight, Sharon Davies would smash me, and I could.
Would she? Maybe. I mean, how much of that is to do with training and stuff, though?
Take her to any sports law or court, and there's no way that she could possibly say that I've got a physical advantage. I can clearly show.
Even if you don't personally have a physical advantage over Sharon Davies, you were still born male, and you want to be included in the female category. You have to engage with that. Why can't people engage with that? I think the obvious reason is, if we did engage with that, we'd pretty much be sitting on this panel saying, yeah, we probably shouldn't be included right now. But at this point, that seems like a pretty radical thing to come out and say, because we're so buried deep in this rabbit hole of, oh no, we have to make it fair for trans people. We have to, inclusivity is the only thing that matters. It's fucking dire, man. It's not a good situation.
Go on a case-by-case basis that she would smash me. So yeah.
Yeah.
And this is speculation. How do you know any of this? Have you ever met her? Have you ever really, fuck?
She's had probably more surgery than most trans women I know as well. So, and Botox. So
What's that? Whatever. Let's keep going.
People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Yeah, well, they always show that photo.
But she wasn't born male. Why? What is this trans cope that I'm being constantly? Is this what all trans activism is? Just fucking coping on TV and on podcasts and on other stuff where you sit and cope about how unfair the world is because you can't smash fucking women at the 100 meters or whatever.
Photo of the swimmer Leah Thomas.
Yeah.
And they always have that photo of how tall Leah looks in comparison to the other girls. But if you put Sharon Davies in that photo in the same frame, then you would see the same disparity.
What does that have to do with anything?
Kate Ledecky is the same height, and Kate Ledecky is 10 seconds faster. When Leah won that NCAA national title, her winning time was 9.4 seconds slower than the national record. That's nearly a full 20.
The national record. Isn't Leah Thomas pretty young? Probably still has a decent amount of developing to go before reaching her prime.
25-yard lap. That is massive. So,
and none of this is just saying, well, we don't have an advantage because of these statistics, but we're not engaging with the question. So what's the point? What's the point in these people talking about this? At least they've got someone on here that seems to know a bit about sport, but we're just going to as many lengths as we can just to avoid talking about the actual subject.
Yeah, but they try to portray it as though she's winning everything. Leah Thomas is going in there and she's invading women's sports and she's taking over because.
Well, she was born male and she's in a female category. But we're not gonna, how you're born doesn't matter, I guess, to these people. But you're in the minority here. You're not gonna win anyone over like this, They
portray it as that this person is spoiling the sport because they're winning everything. But we don't see that in reality, do we?
And again, these people are saying this. Who's saying what? Honestly, these people, they need to stop summarizing what other people say and stick to actual quotes. Because I don't trust a thing they say, and it's disturbing that other people do, and that trans people will watch this and be like, oh no, I've got loads of arguments for why actually trans people should be in sports, when no, not really. You've just found a bunch of diversions to say, well, not actually, without addressing the actual elephant in the room. Oh, Leah Thomas had some slow times. Okay, great. She was still born a man. How are we going to work around that?
No, absolutely don't. Actually, Leah Thomas was a perfect example to show that how having her in the sport actually improved the sport. It you never see these NCAA women's swimming events ever get any media coverage, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And the competition was.
Yeah, but it's not getting media coverage for a good reason. And it's increasing visibility on something that these people probably don't want visibility on, because it's promoting the kind of conversations that this woman has said that she wants to disrupt. So yeah, that's activism, I guess. Fucking, I don't know.
So close in that, like you said, she only won that one event, and her winning time was slower than the 2 previous winning times of that event. There's high school girls in America that have swam faster over that distance in the same time last year. So it actually showed that it was very competitive. There was no unfair advantage whatsoever. And
does that show that there's no unfair advantage with being born male? I don't know about that. And they're still in the female category. Like, why should it be based on identity? And the other thing about the NCAA is apparently their regulations for how long someone has to be on HRT, it's like a year for a male to become female in their eyes and compete. Like, the studies that I've seen do not suggest that after a year, the muscle mass, everything else is the same between trans women and women. So it seems very lax. It seems very over-inclusive to me. Because, even if she doesn't personally have that much of an advantage because she's just not that good on balance, that's not going to stop someone else coming along who is better and who is going to start destroying things. I mean, that Laurel Hubbard, like, didn't she absolutely destroy, like, the world record for, like, weightlifting?
You've got to think Leah was on this treatment for 2.5 years when she competed. Leah, and I see a lot of these anti-trans people are saying she went from 550th. She did, but that was hormones. Before Leah started hormone treatment, as a first year in college, she was a top 10 time in America and a top 100 in a couple other times. And that was just like a 16-year-old. And you get faster as you get older as a male swimmer.
They don't show any of these like stats, so it's possible what they're saying is true. But again, how am I supposed to trust these people? Like, there's so much bullshit.
Leah started hormone treatment about 18, around 20 and a half, now 21. Leah's going to continue to get slower every year. Within about another 2 years.
Is that true? I mean, I don't know.
Leah's body will have broken down that much as an athlete that she will not even be able to compete or train. Her energy levels and recovery rates will be non-existent. So
I have trouble believing what she's saying here. Like, recovery rates will be non-existent. Like, taking HRT doesn't reduce your body mass down to nothing over time. It reduces it down, but not to nothing. Like, that's what she seems to be saying here. I could be missing something, but it's a weird argument, man. And we're just circling around a core issue which we've decided personally doesn't matter, but which a lot of women have decided does matter, and that's their right, But then we just write all the shit off as like scaremongering. So it's like we're not going to engage either way. So what's the point? This is just like a circle jerk. Like, how hard can we cope about sports not wanting formerly men to compete in, right?
As the competitors get faster, Leah's going to continue to get slow. This is why we see very short.
Yeah, I find that bizarre. Like, would she not get faster as she approaches her prime, as she develops her technique, stuff like that? That's what I would have thought. But I don't know. I guess going from male to female, maybe there is that much of an advantage that she will only get slower. But that kind of supports the whole thing. I mean, to me, it seems like the category was made for born women. And so it just doesn't make sense to push on this hard. Especially they're going into like such minutiae, but they won't engage really with a lot of the questions. Like, I haven't seen a response to anything people actually ask. It's not, well, Leah Thomas is winning every single race she's gone in. Like, they seem to just pick the weirdest versions of the arguments that they hear that they can find and then debate those on a stream where no one can talk back to you. I appreciate I'm doing the same thing, but I'm like new. Who fucking knows me? Who do I know to debate at this point? You know what I'm saying? So like, dire.
Careers of trans women in sport, their careers are very short because androgen deprivation has a bit of a window period for a few years and then bang, and then eventually